Hello and welcome back. So today we'll be continuing our discussion sa mga typical accounts used. So this time on the liabilities naman. Right. So first, tulad ng assets, liabilities shall be classified as current and non-current. So an entity shall classify as a liability as current when it expects to settle the liability in its normal operating cycle. Okay, so kapag in-expect nating babayaran natin ang utang natin in the normal operating cycle, it is considered a current liability. Okay. Built in. B, it holds the liability primarily for the purpose of trading. Okay, so kapag ang purpose natin in holding the liability is for trading, it is automatically considered as a current liability. Next, the liability is due to be settled within 12 months after the end of the reporting period. Okay, so kapag ang liability is due or dapat nang bayaran after 12 months, ay 12 months after the reporting period, it should be classified as a current liability. And last, the entity does not have an unconditional right to defer settlement of the liability for at least 12 months after the end of the reporting period. So kapag wala na tayong right na mag-defer ng liability or kapag i-postpone na yung payment of the liability for at least 12 months after the reporting period, it should be classified as a current liability. Okay? So, yung any liability that doesn't meet the criteria for being a current should automatically be considered as a non-current liability. Okay, so yung mga typical accounts na ginagamit natin under current liabilities is versus your accounts payable. Okay, so this is just the opposite of your accounts receivable. Account represents the reverse relationship of accounts receivable. By accepting the goods or services, the buyer agrees to pay for them in the near future. Okay, so kapag meron tayong binili or meron tayong in-inquire na service ng ibang company, tapos hindi tayo nagbayad in cash, that is an accounts payable or utang natin yon, right? Next is your notes payable. Notes payable is just a tulad lang din ng accounts payable pero it is represented by a promissory note. Okay, so kabaliktaran naman ito ng notes receivable. Pero instead na tayo ang nakaka-receive ng promissory note, tayo naman ang mag-i-issue or magbibigay ng promissory note. Okay. Next is your accrued liabilities. So these are the amounts owed to others for unpaid expenses. Okay, so ito yung mga expenses natin na na-incur na natin na kailangan na nating bayaran pero hindi pa natin nababayaran. So an example is your salaries payable, your utilities, interest, and your tax payable. Okay, so kapag ang mga ito, yung mga salaries, utilities, interest, and taxes are due to be paid pero hindi pa natin nababayaran, these are considered as your accrued liabilities. Next, unearned revenues. Okay, so ito yung mga revenues or income natin, ay income na na-receive natin in advance or pera na na-receive natin in advance for services pero hindi pa natin nare-render ang mga services na to. Right, so basically meron tayong obligation to render services to another entity or another person for the advance payment that they have given us. Okay? So next, current portion of a long-term debt. So kapag meron tayong long-term debt or isang utang na dapat bayaran in the long run, yung portion na yon, yung portion na utang na yon na kailangang bayaran within 1 year from the balance sheet date or from the reporting period should be classified as a current asset, a current liability, should say. Okay, so those are your typical current liabilities. Next, yung mga non-current liabilities naman. Okay, so first is the mortgage payable. Okay, so this is this account records long-term debt of the business entity for which the business has pledged a certain asset. Okay, so ito yung isang meron tayong utang for a from a certain entity na tapos itong utang na to is meron tayong na pledge na asset as a security. So meaning kapag hindi na tayo nakapagbayad, yung nag-utangan natin, they have the right to sell the asset na pledge natin. Okay? They can sell or they can foreclose the asset. Example na i-pledge natin is yung mga buildings, yung mga ganun, right? Mga land natin. Kapag hindi tayo nakabayad, they have the right to sell these assets na pledge natin sa kanila. Next is your, morning sir, is your bonds payable. This is ito ay isang contract. Ang bonds is a contract between the issuer and debtor. Okay, so meron tayong contract between another party. Itong contract na yon, it specifies the terms of repayment and the interest to be charged. Okay, so dahil merong contract, we are bonded to a certain entity, right? So yun nga, kaya tawag na bonds payable. Next is so yun, those are your liabilities. So next naman, and your last element under your balance sheet is your owner's equity. So yung owner's equity, maliit lang sa mga partnership and sole proprietorship. Pero kung corporation, medyo marami-rami. Pero we will just focus on the proprietorship point of view. So first is your capital. This is the account used to record the original and additional investments of the owner's entity. So basically, this represents the ownership of the owner in the business. Next is the withdrawal. Okay, kapag merong withdrawals ang isang owner, we will first record it as a withdrawal account. Tapos, at the end of the period, we will be offsetting it to the capital. Okay? So, kapag nag-withdraw siya, i-record muna natin as withdrawal. Tapos, after nun, i-cancel out natin siya sa capital. Next is your income summary. This is a temporary account used at the end of the accounting period to close the income and expenses. Okay, so kapag at the end of the reporting period kasi, yung mga income and expenses natin, kailangan natin i-transfer sa capital, right? So, para i-transfer natin, first yung mga income and expenses, we need to transfer it sa income summary. Tapos kapag na-transfer na sa income summary, ito transfer na natin sa capital account. So yun lang yung use ng income summary. So those are your mga account titles na ginagamit natin or typically used under your balance sheet. Next naman sa income statement. First is your income. So this includes your revenues. This is the inflow of money or assets, including claims to money such as sales made on credit that results from sales of goods or services, or from the use of money property. The result of the revenue is an increase. So alam naman natin ang income, right? So kapag meron tayong binenta, that is an income. Kapag nag-render tayo ng services, that is income. Okay? So basta it results from the ordinary course of the business, meaning ginagawa ito ng business normally, it is part of the income. Next, so yung service income natin your service income. Yung mga income natin, ito yung service income and your sales. Okay, yung service income, these are your revenues earned by performing services for a customer or client. Okay, so kapag ang business natin is primarily earning income by rendering services, so ang tawag nun is your service income. So an example is kapag ang CPA firm, laundry services, right, and laundry services, So, yung mga business na yun, they perform services to other companies or other individuals. Right? So, yung income na na-earn yun, ang tawag doon is service income. Next is your sales. Another way of earning income is, of course, selling goods. Right? So, yung income na na-receive natin for selling goods, we call that sales. So, revenues earned as a result of the sale of merchandise, a result of sales of building materials by construction supplies firm. So, yung sales kasi, depende yan sa type of business. Okay? Siyempre, kung ang business natin is, let's say, nagbebenta talaga siya ng land, real estate, right? So, yung mga nagbentahan niya ng land, that is considered sales. Pero for a business that sells, let's say, cellphone, kapag nagbenta ang business na nagbebenta ng cellphone na kapag nagbenta siya ng land, that is not considered sales. Kasi nga, ang business niya is just selling cellphone. Right? So, depende lang uh, yung sales sa nature of the business. Next is your expenses. Expense involves the outflow of money, the use of other assets, or the incurring of liabilities. Okay, expense includes the cost of any materials, labor, supplies, or services used in an effort to produce revenue. Okay, so alam din natin expenses, to yung mga gastos ng business, right? Pero yung gastos na yun, syempre, hindi dapat siya in regards to buying an asset and paying liabilities. Right? So, yung expenses na sinasabi ko, yung paying of salaries, paying of taxes, yung mga ganun. So, basta hindi siya na-affect, hindi na-affect ang asset or hindi tayo nag-acquire ng asset at hindi tayo nagpe-pay ng liabilities, these are considered assets. Next, so these are your typical expenses. The first is the cost of sales. Okay, so, di ba, kapag nagbebenta tayo, there are costs sa mga binibenta natin. So, for example, meron tayong sales ng, let's say, bottled water. Nagbebenta tayo ng bottled water. So, binibenta natin ang isang piece of bottled water for 20 pesos. Pero for us, we bought that specific bottled water for 15 pesos. So, 15 pesos na amount na pinambili natin, that is the cost of the sale. While yung 20 pesos na pinagbenta natin, that is the sale. Okay? So, next is your salaries or wages expense. So, ito yung mga expenses natin na in regards to the payment of the salaries ng mga employees natin. So, this includes your basic salaries and your bonuses, which includes the 13th month pay, cost of living allowances, and other benefits. Okay. Next is your telecommunication, electricity, fuel, and water expenses. So we call these your utilities expense, right? So all of these are your utilities expense. So self-explanatory naman, related sa pagbayad ng mga telephone bills, electricity bills, fuels, and water expenses. Next is your supplies expense. Okay, so uh, kapag yung business is gumagamit ng supplies, yung yung mga nagagamit natin ng supplies, those are expenses. Right? So we call that supplies expense. So not necessarily na meron tayong outflow of cash dito. This is specific expense, meron tayong outflow of supplies. Okay, so next is your rent expense. So ito yung in regards to paying rent or leases. Not necessarily na buildings lang, pwedeng for equipment and other rentals. Next, supplies ay your insurance expense. So, ito yung mga binabayaran natin for the premiums paid ito yung mga binabayaran natin for insurance. Okay? Kapag ang insurance is binabayaran natin in advance, we will record insurance expense kapag after nag-leave nalipasan na ang oras sa mga ganun. So, after 1 month, we will record insurance expense. Right? So, parang ganun. Next is depreciation expense. So, depreciation expense, these are your expenses na in regards to the depreciation of the asset. Depreciation meaning bumababa ang value ng mga assets. Like, for example, yung mga buildings and equipment natin. So, over time, bumababa naman ang value ng mga to. Right? So, yung pagbaba ng value nito, these are called your depreciation. Next is your uncollectible accounts expense. So, di ba, kapag nagbebenta tayo on account, meaning is hindi pera ang na-receive natin, so we will be collecting in the future, right? So, merong utang ang mga customers natin. So, hindi naman lahat ng mga utang ng customers natin is mako-collect natin. So, yung mga portion na hindi natin mako-collect, those are your uncollectible accounts expense. Okay? So, next is your interest expense. So, ito yung related sa pagbayad natin ng interest. Okay, so yun. Those are your typical accounts used in your income statement account. So, okay, so next we will be moving on to the accounting for business transactions. The accountants observe many events that they identify and measure in financial terms. A business transaction is the occurrence of an event or a condition that affects financial position and can be reliably recorded. Okay, so ang mga business transaction na to, this affects your elements, right? So, an example of a transaction is a buying of inventory. So, kapag bumili tayo ng inventory, meron tayong outflow of cash, nagbayad nga tayo para sa inventory, tapos meron tayong inflow of inventory. Okay, so, na-affect ang elements under your assets. Okay, so, financial transaction worksheet. Sabi dito, every financial transaction can be analyzed or expressed in terms of its effect on the accounting equation. Okay? The financial transactions will be analyzed by means of a financial transaction worksheet, by which a form used to analyze increases and decreases in the assets, liabilities, or owner's equity of a business. So, every transaction mayroong na-affect sa assets, liabilities, and owner's equity. So, yung owner's equity, this includes your income and expenses na. Right, so every item na merong effect sa income and expenses, we will be representing it as change in the owner's equity. Kasi nga, yung income and expenses ultimately will be transferred to your owner's equity. So, let's take a look at an illustration. So, Refusar Accounting Services is a firm that provides a wide range of bookkeeping and accounting services. This sole proprietorship business is owned by Dr. Ray Fernan Refusar, also a CPA. The office is managed by the Manong Song CPA, MBA. The firm is located. Okay, so ito lang yung background niya. So, initial transaction. So, dito na tayo mag-start. On October 1, Ray Fernan Refusar obtained the funds to start the business by withdrawing 800,000 from his personal savings. Okay, so nag-withdraw siya from his personal savings ng 800,000. He deposited the money in a new bank account that he opened in the name of the firm, Refusar Accounting Services. So, yung withdraw niyang 800,000, he deposited it in a new bank account named after the firm of the Refusar Accounting Services. So, let's take a look kung ano yung effect ng transaction ito. Right, so, bale, nag-invest siya ng 800,000 sa business. Take note na we are only concerned with the assets, liabilities, and owner's equity of the business. Wala tayong pakialam sa personal assets, liabilities, and owner's equity ni Ray Fernandez Refusar. Sa business lang tayo may pakialam. Okay, so he invested 800,000 in the business. So, yung business, naka-receive siya ng 800,000. So, yung 800,000 na yun is in the form of cash. So, we increase cash, 800,000. At dahil Ito ay isang investment ni Refuzar, which he is a owner. We will be increasing also the owner's equity to 800,000 increase of owner's equity. Okay. Next, on October 3, Manong Song bought a computer. So, a copy machine, a fax machine, calculators, and other necessary equipment from M. Medina Inc. at the cost of 100,000. M. Medina Inc. agreed to allow 60 days for the firm to pay the bill. Okay, so, bale, the business represented by Manong Song bought computers, machines, and calculators. Okay, so we will so yung cost niya is 100,000. Siyempre nagbayad tayo. Ay, at sabi dito, Medina Inc. agreed to allow 60 days for the firm to pay the bill. So meaning hindi pa tayo nagbayad agad. We will be paying within 60 days. Right? So, meron tayong utang, tapos meron din tayong acquisition of your equipment. Right? So, the cost of the equipment is 100,000. So, we need to increase the equipment by 100,000 kasi nga meron tayong na-acquire equipment. Tapos, we need to increase your accounts payable by 100,000 kasi nga meron tayong utang from the acquisition of equipment. Okay, so accounts payable under siya sa liability. Okay? Take a note na after every transaction, the total asset, which is 900,000, is equal to the total liabilities and owner's equity, 900,000. So this balance should always be maintained, right? Dapat palaging balance ito. Next, purchasing supplies for cash. Manong Song placed an order for toner, fax paper, bond paper, CDs, pens, folders, and other supplies that had a total cost of 20,000. The entity that sold the items, Cavita Supplies Inc., requires cash payments from businesses that are 6 months old. Reposer accounting services therefore included a check with this order. Okay, so meron tayong binili na mga supplies, right? So yung mga toner, fax paper, bond papers, these are all supplies which cost 20,000. Yung binilhan natin, it requires cash payment. So hindi pwedeng utang dito, kailangan bayaran natin in cash. So therefore, yung business, it included a check in its order. So yung check, it is considered as part of your cash. Right? So, kahit check lang yan, it is still cash para sa atin. So, we will be increasing the supplies kasi nga nag-acquire tayo ng supplies worth 20,000. So, we increase of 20,000 na supplies. Tapos, we will be decreasing cash kasi nga nagbayad tayo ng pera ay with cash, ay specifically check of 20,000. So, the total cash now is 780,000. So, the total supplies is 20,000. And the total asset is still 900,000. And the total liabilities and or equity is still 900,000. So, walang nagbago sa total assets and total liabilities. Kasi nga, nag-increase ang asset natin with the supplies, tapos nag-decrease din siya with the payment. Okay? On October 9, Manong Song decided to pay 40,000 to M. Medina Inc. to reduce the firm's debt to that business. So, nagbayad na tayo ng 40,000 to Medina Inc. Remember na yung Medina Inc. ito yung nagutangan natin. So, dahil nagbayad tayo ng utang, kailangan natin i-decrease ang liability natin. So, we will be decreasing the accounts payable by 40,000. Tapos, we will be decreasing your cash by 40,000. Siyempre, nagbayad tayo. So, cash ang madi-decrease. So, the total cash now is 740,000, while your total liabilities now is 60,000. The total assets is 860,000 and your total liabilities and owner's equity is 860,000. Take note that balance pa rin siya. On October 13, Refuzar Accounting Services earned 70,000 of revenue. On October 13, Refuzar Accounting Services earned 70,000 of revenue from charge account clients. These clients are allowed 30 days to pay. Okay, so take note na merong word na charge. Kapag merong word na charge on account, yung mga ganon, on account and in charge, it is typically used to indicate na walang nagbayad ng pera. So, merong utang. Pero in this case is meron tayong revenue, nag-earn tayo ng 70,000 revenue. Right? So, dahil walang pera na na-receive, merong utang ang customer natin. So, dahil merong utang ang customer natin, meron tayong mare-receive in the future, right? Meron tayong mako-collect. So, it is, dahil we will be, yung account na gagamitin natin is your accounts receivable. Okay? Remember, yung accounts receivable, ito yung utang ng customers natin. So, increase your accounts receivable by 70,000. Tapos, increase your capital 70,000. I-increase natin yung capital kasi nga, this is your revenue. Typically, separate na revenue ang ire-record natin. Pero in this case, we will be representing your revenue through the capital account. Okay, so the total assets now is 930,000, while your total liabilities and owner's equity is also 930,000. Okay, so nag-increase ang AR and your capital. On October 18, Reposar Accounting Services hired an accounting staff on October 1 to help in the business. The firm paid 25,000 in salaries for this employee and Jixel Manongsong. Okay, so October 18 na, nag-hire tayo ng 25 ng accounting staff. Nag-hire pala tayo ng accounting staff on October 1. Tapos on October 18, babayaran na natin ang salaries nila along with Manongsong. Okay, so the total salaries na babayaran natin is 25,000. So, we will be decreasing your cash by 25,000 kasi nga nagbayad tayo. Tapos, we will be decreasing your capital by 25,000 kasi this is an expense. Right? So, any expense is represented by your owner's capital by decreasing this said capital. Okay? So, I'm sure you already know, pero yung income natin, it increases your capital account, while your expenses, it decreases your capital account. Okay. On October 23, Reposar Accounting Services received 30,000 from clients who had previously bought services on account. This cash was applied to their account. Okay, so, yung mga customers natin na nagkautang noon, nagko-collect na tayo ngayon. Right? So, 30,000 ang i-collect natin. So, we will be deducting your accounts receivable by 30,000 kasi nga, natanggalan na ang utang ng customer natin. So, we will be decreasing accounts receivable by 30,000 and increasing cash by 30,000 kasi na-collect na natin ang utang nila na 30,000. Okay? So, the total cash now is 745,000 and your total accounts receivable is 40,000. The total asset is 905,000 and the total liability is 905,000. Take note na walang nagbago from your last transaction yung total assets and total liabilities. Kasi nga, nag-increase ang asset natin through the acquisition, for the collection of cash. Tapos nag-decrease din siya through the decrease of the accounts receivable. Okay? Next, on October 27, Reposar Accounting Services earned a total of 210,000 in revenue from clients who paid cash for accounting and bookkeeping services. Okay, so in this case, meron ulit tayong revenue. Pero in this case is, naka-receive na tayo ng cash. Kasi sabi dito, who paid cash. So instead of last time na utang lang muna nila, this case is, meron na tayo na-receive cash agad-agad. So, we will be increasing your cash to 210,000. Kasi nga, meron tayong na-receive from the revenue. Tapos, we will be increasing your capital to 210,000. Kasi, revenue increases your capital account. Okay? On October 30, Reposar Accounting Services received 35,000 bill for the utilities that it had used during the month. A check was issued to pay the bill immediately. Okay, so on October 30, meron tayong na-receive na bill for your utilities. Okay, so yung 35,000. Tapos, nag-issue tayo ng check para bayaran ito agad-agad. So, check again is part of your cash. So, we will be decreasing your cash, 35,000, and also decreasing your capital by 35,000 kasi nga this is an expense, specifically utilities expense. On October 31, Repository Accounting Services issued a check as payment for office rent for October. The lease contract Repository signed specifically a monthly rent of 45,000. So, nagbayad tayo ng rent. So, yung rent na yun is for 1 month and your monthly rent natin is 45,000. So, we will be decreasing cash 45,000 kasi bayad nga tayo for the rent. Tapos, we will be decreasing capital 45,000 kasi this is an expense, specifically rent expense. Okay. On October 31, Ray Fernan Reposar withdrew 150,000 in cash from the business to pay for personal expenses. So, si Reposar, nag-withdraw siya ng 150,000 in cash from the business. So, take note na business lang ang may pakialam tayo. So, natanggalan ang 150,000 in cash ng business. So, we will be deducting 150,000 sa cash. Tapos, we will also be deducting 150,000 from the capital. Yung, i-deduct natin ito kasi nga this is a withdrawal. Right? So, withdrawal decreases your capital account. So, the total cash now is 725,000 and your total owner's equity is 825,000. Total assets is 885,000 and your total liabilities and owner's equity is 885,000. So, take note na balance pa rin. So yun, that is the last transaction for the month para sa business ni Repsodar. Okay, so yun, ganun ang summary on the effects of transaction. So next meeting, we will be discussing yung using of the account for specific for representing the increases and decreases of the transactions or the account titles. Okay, so that will be all, class. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next meeting. And thank you. Goodbye.